Welcome everyone to the Canarian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy and I am an alcoholic acting as your secretary today. Could you join me in a moment's silence to remember the still suffering alcoholic both inside and outside the rooms? And Carol, will you read the preamble for me?
Good evening, my name's Carol and I'm an alcoholic. AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation, nor institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Thank you, Mossy.
Thank you, Carol. And a warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's it, guys. This evening we have, coming from the Philippines, we have DERALD speaking for us. DERALD is getting me out of trouble this evening because my speaker abandoned ship. DERALD, you've got 45 minutes, whatever suits you, and you can do your thing.
Well, I'm grateful to be here. I guess God had a plan because I happened to have my phone in my hand 2 hours ago and I got a message if I wanted to come and share. And I never refuse that if I'm asked. To understand the miracle in my life was I was born to a 16-year-old mother and an 18-year-old alcoholic father. I grew up in a very emotional and physically abusive home. First words I ever heard from my mother was, if I wouldn't have married that no good bastard father of yours and had you, I could have had a life. So I never felt welcome. I never felt wanted. If I cried as a kid, I was told to shut my mouth or I'd get something to cry for, which also told me that my feelings weren't valid. I needed to feel what someone else told me. I was told I'd never amount to anything. I was very good in school, straight A student. I had medals in basketball and wrestling. But anytime I ever did anything, the bleachers, I'm 70, I'll be 73 in a few months. And even at my age, I can still feel the sadness when I think back looking at the bleachers and there was never anybody there, never. And I think I picked up my first drink, I was probably about 13. And man, did I love that stuff because it was an escape. It was an escape from feeling worthless, of not feeling like I measured up. And drinking took those feelings away. All of a sudden, I had this courage and I could be a part of a group. But I can look back today and see that alcohol took a good kid right from the beginning and turned him into a liar, a thief, and a cheat. My life went downhill from 13 to 19. At age 19, I walked into a police station with a shotgun, hoping to be shot to death. That was my way. I was going to commit suicide. And obviously that didn't happen, but I was sentenced to a mental institution indefinitely. So I could have been there a very, very long time. I did spend a year there in a mental hospital. And I can remember when I was in the mental institution, I'd wait till everybody went to bed. And I'd go to the window. It was dark out. There was bars on the window because, you know, I was locked away in a mental institution. And I remember looking out in the darkness and tears running down my face. And I had to hide that from everybody because that's another thing I was told, that boys don't cry. And just wondering why this kid that was voted most likely to succeed was in a mental hospital. But after being there for a year, they let me out. And I woke up one morning with a woman next to me, and we both had wedding rings on. And I had married somebody that I didn't even know. It took us 9 months to get a divorce. We never lived together. And then I met my second wife in a bar, of course. And you know, that lasted a few years, but she left me because of my alcoholism. I was in and out of jail. I was in jail so many times, and I hated jail with a passion. I hated the process of going to jail, being strip searched, and being locked away. You know, it's like I had to think about something else and not think about being locked in there because of claustrophobia. And I would swear to God, I'm not coming back here. But, you know, every time I had a plan, you know, I'm just going to go, maybe go have a drink at the bar. I'm going to have just a drink and I'm coming home. Whatever plan I had, as soon as I put alcohol in my lips, I never ended up where I was going to be or when I was going to be home. Never. I could be in another state. I could be in some woman's bed. I could be back in jail because I had no choices. I did not know that then. I thought I was in charge, but I wasn't. The same time that my life is spiraling out of control, my kid brother, you know, we used to lay in bed as young boys, and I don't think it's normal for young boys to lay in bed at night and talk about what kind of fathers they're going to be someday. But we did because we didn't have anything. We had no love. We had no support, no encouragement, no help with homework. There was nothing. And we used to talk about how different it would be for our kids. My brother took a different route. Mine was alcohol. I did drugs. I did drugs that allowed me to drink more. That's why I took them. So I could drink all night long. But my brother's thing was more drugs. And he got himself in trouble. He got convicted of drug sales. And on the morning of sentencing, he asked me to be in court with him, and I promised him I would. And I overslept like I usually did because I was drunk from the night before. And whenever I came into our city, there was a four-way stop, and there was squad cars at every corner with guns pointed at me, ordered me out of the car on the ground, and I had no idea what was going on. But I had been late. My brother was sentenced to 6 years in prison, and he escaped. He was on the run, and the police thought I had him in my trunk. About a week later, he called me and he said, "Can I hide out where you're living?" And at the time, I was with my third wife, Indian woman, and we were living on an Indian reservation. So it was a pretty good place to hide out. And I told him yes. We got a police scanner, and the anxiety and the stress of listening to that police scanner 24/7, it was almost unbearable because I knew if I got caught with my brother, I was going to go to prison too for harboring a fugitive. Christmas Eve, the phone rang, and our dad's brother had just been stabbed to death in a barroom fight. My brother couldn't go to the funeral because he was a wanted fugitive. It was a 3-hour drive, and I drove to the funeral. And after the funeral on the way home, I did a lot of thinking, and I just made up my mind. I'm not going to stay in Maine anymore. I'm going to take another geographical cure. And I decided to go to Alaska. And when I got home, I told my kid brother, I said, listen, I can't listen to that police scanner no more. And I'm sorry, but I'm leaving. And I remember him following me around as I was collecting my things and asking me, please not to leave. It was a hard thing for me to do, but I left. And kind of funny thinking about Alaska being a geographical cure because I was drunk when I got off the airplane. But I was there about 10 days, and my cousin came out on the job and she said, Daryl, I got some bad news for you. And I knew she was going to tell me that my brother had been captured. I knew it would happen sooner or later. And she said, no, Daryl, that's some bad news. She said, your brother's dead. I remember I started throwing up and I could not stop throwing up. The guilt that came over me, and feeling like I had abandoned him. He was the only person on this earth, the only one on this earth that could validate my reality and where I came from, because he lived it with me and I had left him. I didn't know the details until I got back to Maine. But when I got back to Maine, I found out that after I left, he went to a drug dealer's home to hide out. And some people come to rip off the drugs. And they didn't know he was there. And they shot him while he was still breathing. They poured gasoline over him and set the place on fire. And the only reason I tell you that is to give you an idea of the state of mind I was in. I was out of my mind. Everything in me turned black. Everything. I had nothing but hate, rage, disdain. I would be walking down the road and drop right to my knees, gasping for air. The pain was so bad. I started throwing up blood. I had to have a coffee, or I had to have a drink in the morning to hold a cup of coffee and not be shaking all over the place. And I woke up in a rehab. I still don't know how the hell I got into a rehab, but I woke up, and as soon as I realized where I was at, I wanted to leave. I didn't want to feel all this pain. I wanted to get high. And a therapist took me to the side, and I had 4 kids at the time. And she said, Daryl, you can leave. But if you do, the state has taken your children. And if you don't get sober, they're going to terminate your parental rights. And I knew their mother was not going to get sober. Even for her own children, she wasn't going to do it. So as much as I hated the thought of having to feel anything without some drink or drug, but I was willing for my kids' sake. And they had a thing called a family day where they brought my kids in from various foster homes. And at the end of the day, I remember my little girl was 5 at the time. And they'd allowed me to walk her out to a foster mother's car. And as I was trying to put her into this woman's car, I mean, my daughter didn't know this woman. I did not know this woman. And this little girl was just tensing up and just screaming, "Please, Daddy. Please, Daddy, take me home." I always have a hard time getting through that part of my story. But there was something about that little girl screaming that day that went down deep inside of me. And I remember my brother and I talking about what kind of parents we were going to be. So I went back into the rehab. As much as I hated being there, I went. And they started busing us to these meetings. I'd never even heard of AA. I was 33 years old. And whenever they started bringing me to these meetings, I thought I'd landed on another planet. I didn't understand anything you guys were talking about. People would reach out their hand to me and say, "Welcome." And I'm like, "What the hell do you want?" Because nobody ever wanted anything from me unless there was something attached to it. It took a long time. I come in this program like a wounded animal with a thorn in its paw. And most people stayed away because that's what I wanted. I wanted everybody to stay away from me. I didn't want anybody close to me. I had a lot of hate and a lot of rage, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of remorse. But I think the first miracle for me that happened was the first few meetings they took us to were speakers meetings. And as I'm saying, I had no choice but to listen. So as I'm listening, I'm saying, "Holy shit, I'm not the only one." I started realizing that I wasn't as unique as I always thought I was. I thought I was the only piece of shit on this earth. And then I hear people talking about stuff. I'm going, "Holy crap, they're talking about stuff like that." I would never tell anybody that. But the more and more I kept coming, I started getting a little bit more comfortable. Still had a lot of pain, and I still could not imagine life without a drink. And I remember, I'll never forget this old timer. He came over to me and he said, "Daryl, you're not a bad man. You're a sick man." Nobody had ever said that to me before. And he said, "Daryl, everything that's happened in the past, there's nothing you can do about it. It's over. It's gone. If you stay sober and there's some people that you've hurt, you can make amends to them in any way that you can." And he said, "I know on the other side, you're thinking, how the hell am I going to stay sober the rest of my life?" And I'm looking at this guy thinking, "How the hell do you know what I'm thinking?" Because that's exactly what I was thinking. And he said, "Why don't I make this simple for you?" He said, "Why don't you just stay sober today?" He said, "What are you going to do? Sleep 8 or 10 hours? So how long do you really have to stay sober?" He said, "Come to these meetings, get some phone numbers from people at these meetings, people like us that have this disease. Find yourself a sponsor. And all you got to do is stay sober today, Daryl." He said, "If you want to drink tomorrow, that's your right. You can have a drink tomorrow if you want. Right now, I'm at 14,050 days, and tomorrow still has not come. Still has not come. It's still today." First couple of years in the program was hard for me because I didn't want to hear about the word God. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I was brought up to believe I'm a Irish Protestant, and I was brought up to believe in a rewarding and punishing God. And I wanted nothing to do with any punishing God. I was 2 years sober. I had my kids back. I had my health back. I had some money in my pocket, but I was still empty inside. I was still blaming. I was still gossiping. I was still judging. And I was sitting on the riverbank one day. It was a beautiful, warm, sunny day. The sun was glistening on the river. And I remember saying out loud, you know, people tell me you're there. I don't know if you're there. And if you're there, I don't know what the hell you are. But I know I don't want to live like this no more. And what happened to me on that riverbank that day is described in the big book as being catapulted into the fourth dimension. That happened to me that day. And there was so much information that came in just in seconds. It's like it rewired my brain. All of a sudden I knew, I mean, I was enveloped like a blanket around me of just undescribable love, pure love. And I knew that I had been loved from the day I was born, and I will be loved till the day I leave. That I have a divine presence within me. I don't have to look to the heavens. I don't have to go to a church. Right where I sit, my higher power is omnipresent, right here, right now. My higher power is omnipotent. My higher power is omniscient. So I don't have to pray for anything because my higher power already knows what my needs are before I do. So every day when I wake up, I say, thy will, not mine, be done. Let me be an instrument today. I realized after having 4 wives during that experience also, the light bulb came on that I was the common denominator. I was the one that was picking sick women because I was a sick man. I wasn't doing it consciously, but subconsciously, I was picking all I knew, people that were unemotionally available. So I realized that I had a lot of work to do on DERALD. And I had to go to work on me and find out who I was, because I really didn't know who I was. I could be anybody you wanted me to be in the moment, but I didn't know who I was. Matter of fact, I even, from that experience, I started getting intuitions. Some of them I ignored, but anyone that I actually followed, something good always happened. But I was led to a program outside of AA called ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And I spent 2 years in that program. And this guy that walked into the halls of AA with a black leather jacket and a buck knife and boots and nothing but hate, I cried for 2 years. I couldn't stop crying. Thought I was losing my mind. But all that stuff I had buried so deep all those years, through ACOA, it was all brought up. And I had to heal it. I had to feel it and heal it. And I did. It was some hard work, but I did it. 6 years sober, I had an intuitive feeling to go to the Philippines. Thought I was losing my goddamn mind. I ain't going to the Philippines. It's halfway around the world. I don't know anybody over there. But that feeling was so strong. I came to the Philippines, didn't know anyone, but I met this person and they started showing me around. And they said, you know, I'd like you to meet somebody I know. And we went to this house. And this young, beautiful Filipina woman walked out, and I looked at her and I said, oh my God. Something deep inside of me, I knew right then when I looked at her, I'll never be with another woman in my life. She wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to meet her. She had already bought a plane ticket to go back to her home, but her plane got delayed. That's the only reason I got to meet her. And in about 4 weeks, it'll be 33 years that we have been married. Best friends from the day that we met. Each other's cheerleaders. I have never in 33 years called my wife a derogatory name, and she's never called me one. We have a lot of people that tell us all the time, man, give anything to have a relationship like you have. Our youngest daughter, she was like 21. And I'll never forget her saying to me one day, because she kept going out with these guys. I mean, she's such a beautiful girl, very talented, very bubbly personality, just a fantastic person. But she kept picking these guys that were just, I wanted so bad to like her boyfriend, but I couldn't. I mean, they were useless. And she said to me at 21 years old, she said, Dad, I would give anything to meet a man that would treat me the way you treat my mother. And I'm thinking, well, why the hell don't you? And it was because I found out at 30 years sober, I didn't learn this until 30 years sober, that I didn't become an alcoholic. I was born one. Because my daughter was born when I was 9 years sober, and she had nothing but a loving home. That parents were there for her totally. And I can't even talk to her. I haven't talked to her now in a couple of years because alcoholism has stolen my child. The guy that took our kids, or took my kids, at 15 years sober, he come to me and he said, Daryl, would you consider being a foster parent? And I looked at him and I said, what did you say? He said, I want to know if you want to be a foster parent. I said, you don't remember you took my kids away from me and you're asking me to be a foster parent? He said, you're not the same man, Daryl. My wife and I talked about it. We become licensed. We took kids in all hours of the night. Our first child, young boy that I named after my brother that was killed, Michael, we knew there was something wrong because he was 4 years old and he wasn't speaking. We had him tested and he has autism. And they wanted to put him in school for autistic children. And we said no, because we know that, if you put a child in an environment, they become their environment. We said, you're going to put him in regular school with a special ed teacher because we're going to be here. And I used to come to these meetings and you guys would give me love and encouragement, patience and tolerance. And I was able to be a conduit to take that home to my children and love them and have patience and tolerance with them and to help them with homework. But this young boy came to our home as, I don't know if anybody knows about foster care, but they have a thing called a respite. It's where a foster parent has a child and they need a break, like for a weekend, and they call it a respite. So this young boy, 9 years old, with autism, Asperger's autism, he came to our house for the weekend. And at the end of the weekend, he didn't want to leave. My wife and I talked. We adopted him. So now I've got 2 boys with autism, 3 other ones. And I sat in an auditorium with tears running down my face, watching all 5 of those kids graduate high school with honors because they had a sober father. AA gave them a sober father. AA gave my wife a husband. AA gave me a family. I never had a family until I come to AA. It took a long time to understand that nobody wanted anything from me. They just wanted me to get better. And I know that feeling because I have it today. When I see a newcomer today, I want to help that newcomer because I know I've been there. I forgave the person that killed my brother. You know, I don't know, it probably didn't do anything for him, but it set me free. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Not to me, to themselves. And it's the same thing with life today. I don't argue with anybody about politics. I don't argue with anybody about religion. I don't argue with anybody about their opinion. That's their opinion. And I got no business arguing with them. Live and let live. That's what I do today. And I'm free. I go to bed at night completely free. No anger, no resentment. I have 3 children, adult children that are alcoholics that I have no relationship with right now. I don't lose any sleep. None. Because I may be the instrument that they got here, but I did not create them. God did. And they're here for their journey, just like I am here for my journey. And they have to go their way, just like I had to go my way. And I'm the last guy they're going to listen to anyway. As a matter of fact, growing up with a sober father and you're drinking, who the hell are you going to stay away from? You're going to stay away from your father. And that's exactly what they do. You know, I wish it was different, but acceptance, you know, there's a lot of freedom in acceptance. And today I do that. I don't worry about the past. Matter of fact, today I'm grateful for the past. I'm grateful for all the pain that I've gone through in my life because it brought me to a spiritual path that will take me back home to the spirit world. And it's given me a family that no matter where I go, I'm loved and I love you. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would tell another man I love them. And today it flows from me. I love you. Why does Zoom work so well? We're all over the world. I'm in the Philippines. Some people are in Ireland. Some people are in Ecuador. Yeah, and everybody's connecting with what I'm saying. I know you are. And I will connect with anything that you say. Why is that? It's because we're all spiritually connected. That's why. We're all one. I can't plant an apple seed and get oranges. I'm going to get what I plant. You know, if I want to give love, I'm going to get love. If I want to give forgiveness, I'm going to have forgiveness. If I give compassion, I'm going to get compassion. If I want to give anger and resentment, I'm going to have a pretty shitty world because I reap what I sow. I've been to every Christmas. I've been to every Easter egg hunt. We had family tradition. Every week we took our kids either to a movie or to a restaurant or to a fairgrounds. Sometimes we sat on the floor and played board games. I hate board games, but I did it because I loved my children and I wanted them happy. Making them happy made me happy. My son was into this WWE fake wrestling. I mean, I did the real wrestling whenever I was in school, but this WWE fake stuff. My son was right into that. And he was 15 years old. I was a carpenter my whole life, contractor. And while he was at school one day, I ordered a bunch of lumber and they dropped it off at our house. And when he got home from school, he said, "Dad, what are you doing with all the lumber?" And I said, "We're going to build a backyard wrestling ring." He said, "No shit." I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And we built a wrestling ring, and he got a fog machine, and they got a step ladder and cookie sheets to beat each other over the head. Somebody called the police. The police came, saw what the kids were doing. They sat down and watched the show. They said, "Screw the neighbor. These kids are not out doing alcohol and drugs. They're enjoying themselves." And that's what I wanted to give my kids, something I never had, is a life of love and caring. I cannot live long enough to repay what this program has given to me. I am the guy that walked into the halls of AA. AA murdered him a long time ago. I like who I am today. I don't people please anybody anymore. And I don't have no problem saying no, and I'm not going to explain to you why I say no. It's none of your business. I take care of me today. There was nobody that nurtured and took care of that little boy inside me when I was growing up. And I sure as hell didn't take care of him either whenever I was drinking and drugging. But this program showed me how to take care of that little boy, and I do today. I take care of him, and I make sure he's not hurt. I make sure he's not around chaos, drama, and insanity. I stay away from that shit. I'm gonna close this by reading a poem that I wrote for my brother. I was looking for you today. I just wanted to talk. Maybe we could go fishing, or maybe just a walk. Yeah, we did those things before, and we shared a lot of dreams too. But did I ever say how much you meant to me and how much I love you? I remember us yesterday. We were full of life and zest. We made some mistakes, but doing our best. At an early age, and I the older, when you were troubled, you had a shoulder. What we shared was the love of one kind, the love of two brothers that no one could unbind. The tree cabins and go-karts, the laughter and fun, sharing our room when the day was done. I was looking for you today. I just wanted to talk. Maybe we could play baseball, or maybe just a walk. We both had futures, wanting kids in a home, both having potential that neither of us had shown. We found alcohol and drugs so innocently at first, not knowing then there could be nothing worse. Our lives started to alter, our dreams started to slide. To everyone else, mind your own business, we cried. How did we become addicted? Now our choices are gone. We just couldn't stop, although we knew we were wrong. You with your mate, me with mine. We both wanted children, but you didn't have time. The lives we lived wanting the best, how alcohol and drugs have lain you to rest. Will always be a memory that will always bring a tear. Destroyed by alcohol and drugs, and today it is clear. I was looking for you today. I just wanted to talk. Maybe we could go to a movie. or maybe just a wall. I want you to know you live on with me. I'll make our name a proud one for everyone to see. I want people to know they have choices today. Don't go through this type of pain and have your life taken away. The ache in my heart I carry yesterday till today, and I share with you that you find the miracle of AA. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Daryl. What an amazing share. Normally I only ask people that I've heard before. So Bob, I thank you. Bob, he's there. Bob's my Indian brother. I was told, you're no good, you're never going to be any good, you're never going to achieve anything. And I've always been told you can't do it that way. You have to do it the other way. You have to conform to other people. And I couldn't fit in that. And like you, at the age of 12 or 13, I picked up my first drink at 16. I started on drugs at 17. I went to the doctor to get off everything, and he put me on medication. And then I had the medication as well. And I always had something in my system. I was always angry. I left a trail of destruction behind me. There's no part of my drinking story I ever want back. None of it. I'm coming into the fellowship then. I spent 4 years going in and out. The last time I came back, I was lucky enough to meet the right people. And I couldn't understand why people were being nice to me. Because there's always an angle, you know what I mean? And this guy, Jimmy Hickey, used to be nice to me, and I used to think, is this guy gay? Is he going to come on to me? What's the story? The sort of lady in Osmond House used to rub my back, like you'd rub a child's back. How are you doing, Mossy? I was thinking, what's she looking for? Do you know what I mean? But nobody was looking for anything. They wanted me well. And I learned that lesson here. And like you, I learned how to be a husband. I learned how to be a father. I learned how to be a son to my parents. And I'm so grateful to this fellowship for what it's done. And resentment is another thing you spoke of. You know, I prayed for years for members of my family after the way things went, that they'd get everything they wanted in life and more. And you know, they never got it. But I got free. And that's the magic. I'm free of all the resentment, free of all that. And I was able to wish them well on their life, whatever way it goes. My brother passed away last year, and he was my hero growing up. And we hadn't spoken for about 20 years. And that's just the way it is. I love being sober. I love what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. And it's a pleasure to hear you, Daryl. Really it is. And that's it. The yellow card. Who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, please let it stay here. And Daryl, we close with the serenity prayer. If you'd lead us out, please. And again, thanks so much. There was a fantastic share. And I think it moved us all. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much. It was an honor to be here. Moment of silence for the sick and suffering inside and outside our fellowship. God, be the serenity to accept
courage, change things, the wisdom to know. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, it won't if you don't. Thank